what's going on? Jake Paul is reportedly set to be taking on Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. in a cruiserweight fight this summer, with Chavez Jr. being a former world champion who fought on Jake's undercard last year. But that doesn't tell the whole story. So this is why Jake Paul vs Chavez Jr. will not end well.
And by the way, we're Punch Talk and are bringing you daily combat sports videos, so if you enjoy the content, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to help support the channel. So Mike Coppinger reported that Jake Paul is set to be fighting the son of a legend, Mexico's own Julio Cesar Chavez, one of the greatest Mexican fighters of all time. But his son has definitely not lived up to what his actual legacy is, to say the least. Chavez Jr. now 39 years old, a much smaller guy than Jake Paul. If you go back, he started his career at 130 pounds. Now obviously, this is a cruiserweight fight. He's going to be fighting at 200, and sure, a lot of these Mexican guys started their pro careers way earlier than most. He started his pro career at 17 years old, but still, he's a way smaller natural guy than Jake Paul. He did fight a couple times, I guess, at cruiserweight, most recently against Uriah Hall on Jake Paul's undercard. He got a decision win in that fight. It was pretty lackluster, and Uriah Hall, not known to have the greatest pure boxing skill himself. He was supposed to fight Darren Till on that card. I feel like that could have been way more competitive. If not, Darren Till could have probably even beat Chavez Jr. because Chavez lost to Anderson Silva, a former opponent of Jake Paul's, that happened in 2021, and it's not like Chavez Jr. is getting any better or any younger or any fresher since that fight. He's just probably been destroying his body, going through a lot of issues as he's had over the last couple of years. Even though he's had over 60 pro fights in his career, I don't know if he's even gonna beat Jake Paul, which is kind of insane to say.
Yeah, most definitely, and this kind of leads a perfect opportunity for Jake Paul and to try to spin some narratives here, to which if Jake Paul is able to beat Chavez Jr., he could be out here claiming that he beat a proper former world champion and not Mike Tyson, who's 58 years old now and has been inactive for so many years from professional fighting. Chavez is still at least 39 and has been active recently, so Jake Paul can be out here claiming that he would be a former world champion, that he is on that level, and especially if he's able to even finish him, that would be huge for Jake Paul. He could as well claim that he was able to beat Chavez Jr. quicker than the likes of Canelo Alvarez was able to, as they went to decision in their fight. And if anything, this isn't the most exciting boxing fight in terms of excitement of who's gonna win, and Jake Paul's actually fighting a very high level fight. Don't let the record fool you on Chavez Jr. It should be pretty likely at this stage in their careers that Jake Paul is going to win this fight, which is crazy to say. But if anything, this is very big for how Jake Paul can spin this fight. Try to fight back against audiences now saying that he hasn't fought a real fighter, he isn't a proper boxer. He could say, hey, I'm here and I beat a former world champion, regardless of anything, one that's still been active. A guy that has fought the likes of Canelo Alvarez, still the face of boxing practically, a huge name who's still on that level. Regardless if he lost, still being in the ring with him gives some credibility to Jake for him to fight. And in general, this is gonna be a win, to be honest, for Jake Paul.
Yeah, it is kind of a weird fight for Jake, in my opinion. It kind of seemed like he was a little bit even past this level, as crazy as that is to say. He beat Anderson Silva, who beat Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Sure, boxing math might not work like that directly, but Chavez Jr. really just hasn't impressed in the last couple of years. He's 39 years old now. He's only getting older. Sure, he was a WBC world champion 14 years ago at 154 pounds. Meanwhile, he's going to be fighting at 200 pounds against a guy way bigger than him, and against a guy who honestly has probably been taking boxing more seriously than he has in the last couple of years. At least Jake has been in the gym training, getting ready for fights, being a lot more active than Chavez Jr. And it's not like when Chavez Jr. fought Canelo that was anything even remotely close. It was a one-sided whooping from Canelo, a masterclass schooling, 12-0. An easy win, but he didn't stop Chavez Jr., so if Jake stops him, I guess that's a decent look for him, even though he's way bigger than Chavez Jr. and he's fighting a way worse version of Chavez Jr. He was 164 pounds when he fought Canelo. He's going to be 200 pounds when he fights Jake Paul, and as I said, he's a way smaller guy, so overall, this is a pretty bizarre fight, unless Chavez Jr. somehow turns back the clock and enters his prime at 39 years old, which is tough to see ever happening. I don't know if this is even a level he could still compete at.
Yeah, definitely. In terms of fight quality, this is definitely a massive fall off compared to the likes of names Jake Paul was being thrown around there with for his next fight. Of course, being in talks to fight Canelo Alvarez. which that fell through after Canelo pretty much played Jake Paul just to get more money from Saudi. And even the likes of a Tommy Fury at this point would be a way better challenge, of course, because Jake actually lost to Tommy previously, and Tommy's a younger guy, good fundamental boxer. That would be still a good challenge for Jake at this point of his career and wouldn't be seen as a step back. So obviously in those terms, Chavez Jr. is a step down. Kind of underwhelming for Jake Paul at this point in his career. If anything, this fight should have happened years ago when he was still fighting retired MMA fighters. That would have been a better progression for him compared to Jake fighting Chavez Jr. now. But just purely in terms of how Jake is going to be able to spin this and put this in his way, in his mind, he sees this as a viable path to take forward next, especially again since those fights like Canelo Alvarez got taken away from him, and he's kind of at a crossroads of where he's going to go next.
Yeah, when you're talking about this fight, stylistically, I guess Chavez Jr. has that Mexican walking forward style, but he's not really necessarily the toughest guy. He's had a lot of issues in his personal life that have kept him out of being a top level boxer in the ring or even really competing consistently and actively over the years. He had troubles with drinking problems, partying, went to rehab. Seemed like he sorted his life out at times, but then spiraled again. Was losing to guys like Anderson Silva even in his hometown of Mexico. And it's not like that was even close to a prime Anderson Silva. That was a Anderson Silva who was like 47, 46 years old at the time, coming off of brutal losses in his UFC career. Sure, he recently beat Uriah Hall on Jake Paul's undercard, so I guess that's kind of what they're trying to make a storyline out of and trying to build this off of and spin this with. But overall, not the most exciting, interesting fight Jake could have taken, in my opinion. I feel like maybe a Tommy Fury or something like that would have been a lot better to try to avenge that loss, but I guess there were negotiation issues with Tommy Fury not wanting to fight for the amount that Jake was willing to give him in that. But overall, I don't know if Chavez Jr. even has what it takes, and he only has 2 stoppages in his career, one to Daniel Jacobs, and he's never really been knocked out, so I don't know if he gets completely cleaned out and slept by Jake Paul, but I don't know if he takes this fight, to be honest.
Yeah, but overall, the sentiments on this fight is Jake Paul just seems like he's starting to progress downwards with the type of competition he's facing these days. Seems like some of the opponents he fights at this point is kind of just to appease to the haters and for some of the narratives they put out saying that he's not a real boxer, he hasn't fought real boxers, and he just fights senior citizens. Jake has even recently claimed that Chavez Jr. is easy work and that he wants tougher opponents. So it's honestly interesting still that he's going down this path then.
Here, WWE President Gilberto Mendoza has said a couple times that he'd be willing, he wouldn't be against you having a title fight against Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. said that you guys are negotiating the fight. What are your thoughts about Mendoza's comments and Julio Cesar Chavez as an opponent?
I want someone tougher, but like honestly, he's easy work, and I want someone tougher to shut people up.
So it will be interesting to see if Jake Paul is able to win this fight and I guess where he'll go from there. But let us know down below what you think about Jake Paul versus Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. And if you want to see more boxing on this channel, check out the video on the screen, the night Ryan Garcia shocked the world.